undergraduates at Cambridge.
Hi, welcome to Downtown Rotary. I'm Mark Crawford, President, and we are glad you're here. Let's start our meeting off with a verse of, with the Pledge of Allegiance, excuse me. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. We have an exciting program for you today. While Kathleen Marker is on her way up to introduce guests and give us our Rotary Minute, I will share that this is the last meeting to donate to the cut money that goes to our May featured charity, which is the Topeka Library Foundation. The money is going for the Dolly Parton Imagination Library Literacy Program for children birth through age 5. This program will allow 14 children to participate and be ready for kindergarten. Each enrolled child gets in the mail a free age-appropriate book every month. And boy, just at the end of every month, I almost get the description down to that perfectly, and then we come to the charity. Kathleen.
Doubling up.
Good morning. This may be the shortest Rotary Minute only because I don't have much voice today. So this weekend, Rotary International will convene in Hamburg, Germany, with more than 25,000 participants. I think that's pretty impressive. And what comes to mind for me is I can only imagine the good work that's going to be done in Hamburg. And it makes me feel good to be a Rotarian. So I want to end this Rotary Minute, or half minute, with one of my favorite quotes by Dr. Loretta Scott. We can't help everyone, but everyone can help someone. So moving on to our guests today, we have two guests. So our first guest is a guest of Martin Turner, and that guest is Lexi Turner.
Hi, Lexi.
And also Jeanette Weens has a guest, Jessica Kerr.
Hi, Jessica.
Thank you, Kathleen, and welcome to our guests. Are there any Friend X announcements today? Has anybody received a gift from their Friend X or an encouraging word that they want to share? All right, moving right along. 2019 Topeka Rotary Park reception and groundbreaking for the original facade of the Constitution Hall is June 6th. Grant, would you like to come up and share a little bit more detail about that? I know Linda is sending out emails, so please watch those, and if you get a chance to shoot back, if you can attend, and we'd love for you to attend, I think it'll be a great night, shoot back an RSVP to her so she can give Grant and his team the a head count for beverages and all the rest. Grant.
Yeah, we're just going to celebrate, you know, the groundbreaking for the new facade, and also a new plaque we're adding to the park, and we're also going to recognize the recent past presidents of the 4 Rotary clubs, and we'd love to have everyone come and join us for an evening of refreshment and fun. And we our short speakers will be Vita Wolgast and Jim Ogles. You'll recognize those names. Thanks.
Thank you, Grant. If you have ties that you no longer wear, we'd encourage you to bring those to Rotary meetings. We're donating those to the Interact Club at Highland Park. We also have district interviews for 3 Rotary International Peace Fellowships. Those are next week, the first week of June. If you're interested, contact Patty Millard with the Topeka South Club if you'd like to be a part of those interviews. And if Mike Riley and Gianfranco Pizzina would come forward, we'd love to award you your blue badges today. Two more quick announcements. We got a surprise check from the district for $350. Clubs are awarded those sometimes at the first of the year and sometimes at the end of the year. Blanche wanted to do that as a surprise and an encouragement for an extra service project toward the end of our Rotary year. And so we were awarded that as a club. We put our goals out on Club Runner, and Linda helped us get all that squared away correctly before the year started for this Rotary year. And so we earned that $350. And I've got a letter here that I'll give to Jeanette that outlines that $350 that's deposited in our account, and we have kind of a pop-up service project of some sort coming up. This is news to her, so she's finding out live as all of you are, and so we'll help with that and make that happen. No stress, have a lot of fun. We also have several people, as you know, this time of year who are relocated for jobs, and we've had some amazing additions to our club this year with new members, and we need a few more. And so please think about who you'd like to share the gift of Rotary with. We also had one club member who came and extended the offer of sponsoring someone, and said she would be happy to sponsor someone for up to a year for their first Rotary year, and would love to give the Rotary experience that way. So if any of you are open to that, please consider that. If any of you know of anyone who would fit that mold quite well and might appreciate a sponsorship and be a wonderful addition as a club member, please let us know who that person is and invite them to a meeting. And again, invite friends, and let's grow the club and be a +1 on numbers for the year, and +1 on retention of females is a big emphasis by Rotary International this year, and we want to earn that presidential citation for the club. So with that said, Eric, it's my pleasure to introduce Eric Grospich, one of our very own, to introduce our speaker today. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Eric Grospich. I serve as the Vice President for Student Life at Washburn University. And so it is my pleasure, as you might guess, to introduce my boss, Dr. Jerry Farley. Dr. Farley has been the president since 1997, not 77, sorry. There have been a lot of changes on campus, as you know, the different buildings, but also with Washburn Tech and Washburn Tech East, which we'll talk a little bit about today. But the thing I wanted to share that you probably don't know, I've been at Washburn now for 3 years and have worked professionally in student affairs and student life for over 20. Every time I go to Dr. Farley with this great idea or some challenge, he smiles at me very kindly and asks me really 2 questions. And the first question is, will your decision make Washburn better for its students, faculty, and staff? And if I could answer that to the affirmative, he goes to the second one. He says it will make Washburn better for Topeka. And each time that he pushes me to have those conversations when we think about how do we get our students moving and engaged, not just on campus, but in our community. And so I'm hoping he'll share a little bit of that wisdom and magic with you today. But with that, I've been told to keep it short. Dr. Jerry Farley.
Hello, everyone. Hi. Welcome. Thank you for inviting me to come be with you today. This is quite an honor. I know your past president and your Rotary governor, Mrs. Parks, quite well. She has served on the Washburn board a long time, as a matter of fact. It's not quite as long as your husband did, I think. But she does a great job for us. I know she did for you, and I know she worked really, really hard this last year to get all the things done that she wanted to do. And it didn't surprise me that you said that there was something else that she wanted to add to your workload. She was good at doing that. So today, if I can, just take a few minutes and talk with you a little bit about Washburn University. I know many of you know a lot about Washburn. Probably some of you have been engaged with Washburn longer than I have. And it is a part of the Topeka community. And it's really a unique organization, a unique relationship between Topeka and Washburn. And let me just share a few things about that. We are known as either the last or the next to last municipal university in the country. Municipal university in the country. We were founded in 1865. The city of Topeka was founded in 1857? 54, okay. And from the time of founding, we've had this wonderful relationship. Now, at the time, people that were founding cities like Topeka, they wanted to have a university in their midst. It meant a lot to them. It gave them credibility as a place where you could come, where the population would grow. And they liked to have universities because it did have some amount of sophistication that it could bring to the community. But as important as anything else, what the university could do would be to help create a skilled workforce. A skilled workforce. From the time of the founding of Topeka, we needed population. We needed people that had skills. We needed people so that the economy would grow here in this river city. It meant jobs to everyone. Now currently, we have a relationship that builds on that. And it's as valid today. What they were trying to do in the last 2 centuries ago as it was then. We want a prepared and educated workforce. And that's primarily what we do. We do that. It's difficult to grow a business if you don't have the employees. Difficult to grow a business and grow your economy if we don't have skilled workers. And we do that. We provide and prepare skilled workers. Now, we have, at Washburn, we have had facilities on campus for a long time. One of the first facilities that we had was right across the street, 10th and Jackson, from the Capitol building. And they had just one nice building there. And if you ever see it, you'll see that it also it had another little small building next to it because there wasn't any indoor plumbing. And so that, I thought we ought to airbrush that a little bit and take that out as something we're really proud of here at Topeka. And we endured as an institution over several decades. There was a lot of financial trauma and a lot of financial problems in our country in the last part of the 1800s. And then, of course, World War I followed that, and then the Great Depression. And Washburn almost failed many times during that process. Came on the verge of failing. In fact, as we were going, just before World War II, we were going into hopefully a recovery in the economy. But it wasn't anywhere near what people thought it should be. And so Topeka went to the citizens of, people from Washburn, the citizens of Topeka, and said, take us. We want to become a part of the city of Topeka. We want to become a municipal university, and at that point in time, there were a lot of them all around the country. There are hundreds of municipal universities all around the country. But citizens absorbed us, brought us into the tax base for the city of Topeka. Now, at the university, what we were trying to do with all of that was occurring was to create an educated citizen for Topeka. And we talk about skills that people have. We talk about the needs that the community has. One of the things that we all have, and one of the reasons that we are as strong as we are, not only as a city and a state and a country, is because of education. Now, you expect me to say something about education, right? But if you look back on what's happened in the country over a long period of time, it was creating these educated citizens that would do things. And it's not just about jobs. They would have a great job, they would do wonderful work, but then they would go home. And they would become leaders in Topeka. They would be you. They would be people starting organizations like Rotary and others. And that was as important as jobs, really, because it created a sense. You hear us talk about this. You hear us talk about this an awful lot, actually. But it creates a sense of place where is. You were sitting right there a moment ago. Where'd you go? Never mind. I was going to point out one of the things that we do. How do you like downtown Topeka now? Okay, that sense of place is extraordinarily important. Okay? But we want to create a citizen that is more than just that. We want to create a citizen that has a lot of skills. Every student that comes to Washburn and enrolls at Washburn University, I'll come to Washburn Tech in a few moments here, but everyone that enrolls at Washburn University, we have 5 or 6 outcomes that we expect them to achieve. Right? Some of you have baccalaureate or master's degrees, PhDs perhaps, and you know that you had to take a lot of courses in arts and sciences primarily. And you had to endure some of those classes that wasn't necessarily what you really wanted to study. You wanted to get in and study the skill that you were looking for. But we have these outcomes that we expect of students. The first of them is we want them to develop strategic, critical thinking skills. Now, what does critical thinking mean? Well, it means that you have some degree of knowledge about something. You engage, hopefully through civil discourse, with someone, and your knowledge grows. But you don't just accept what they say. You challenge it. You determine whether or not you can improve it in some fashion. And you take that critical thinking with you to a job and to your family and to your community. Critical thinking skills. We also want a student to leave with analytic reasoning skills. How much now in today's world do we have so much data in front of us? A lot of people call it big data. We have big data. And we want to make certain that we have students that understand data, that understands what data means and how to translate that into performance. It's critical thinking, analytic reasoning. We also want every student to be able to communicate. Have to communicate, written and oral. Have to demonstrate. You may have the best idea of anyone in the room, but if you can't communicate that idea and explain it in a way that others can embrace it, your idea is going to flounder in some fashion. We want students to be able to communicate. Then when they have all that information, we want them to come up with solutions to problems. Every one of us, every business we have, there's always some kind of problem, there's always some kind of issue. And you want people that are working with you to be able to address whatever that problem is and solve it. Come up with a solution based upon what you know and the reasoning skills that you have. And finally, we want our students to have information literacy. Okay? Eugene knows this. He tries to help us create a literacy outlook for our students. You may find this hard to believe, but a lot of students come to us and they think everything they read on the internet is true. Is it true? I mean, not even close. Susan and I host dinner for students, about 30 students at a time over to our house about every 3 weeks. And for the last 8, 9, 10 years, we have at least one session devoted to information literacy and being able to discern what is fact from what is nonsense. And I think that our students are pretty good at doing that now. I think they have the understanding of what that really means. All those things I just said, forms the platform that our students then work from. Our students then will take all that information that they've gained from a history course or a philosophy course or a psychology course. They take all that information and they begin to put it together with their discipline, what it is that they want with their life. They can be nurses, they can be accountants, they can be chemists. We want them to have that platform to prepare them to be better at that, prepare them for the job. And our goal is that we will have well-trained employees at your work, and we will have well-involved, educated citizens after work and in your family life. Now, at this point, across the country, all across the country, a lot of people are challenging higher education. They're challenging it on a number of fronts. They're challenging it that maybe it's not for everyone. Perhaps there are some students that would do better at something else. And getting a college education, getting a baccalaureate degree or 3 degrees from an institution is expensive. It is very expensive. And a lot of people that should know much better, they're challenging, is it worth it to have the college education? In fact, I was with the editorial board a few weeks ago and made a comment to them, and that comment was that I had read in some publication recently that some CEOs were saying, we don't need people with college degrees. In fact, we don't need people with high school diplomas because they cost more. And we want to just train them to do this job and this job and this job. It's a little short-sighted. I think it's horribly short-sighted. The question, though, is who pays for that and who benefits from it? For ages now, since way before World War II, our country has assumed a philosophy that education was a public good. All the way back to President Jackson in the early 1835 or something. Free education through the 8th grade. And we have pushed that boundary further and further and further out. And we have always assumed that it's for the greater good. But a lot of people today are looking at it and say it's too expensive. And it's really a private benefit. So you, the students, pay for it. And there wasn't a conclave around the country where legislators went to talk with one another and decide we're all going to lower the funding for higher education. But it has happened. The funding for higher education all across the country has diminished significantly. Absolutely significant. It's really unbelievable. So who pays? Who pays for that? I say this at some risk. When I went to college, and that's been a long time ago, just take a guess at what my tuition rate was.
$238.
Total? What's the matter with you? It was just about that. It really wasn't quite that high. $7 a credit hour. $7 a credit hour. Okay, some of you had something like that, I bet. Didn't you? Some of you went to Washburn when, what, tuition was $50 or something an hour? How much? 25? $9? Other people had similar? Now, if you feel embarrassed now that that's all you pay, come see me. We'll accept a donation and kind of bring it up to the level that it's really worth. Okay? Well, who pays and who benefits is us. We pay, but we all benefit from it. We all benefit from what we put into it. Although funding from the state all across the country has declined, as I said, a tremendous amount. Funding here in Kansas has declined an enormous amount. Now, for Washburn, you probably know this. At Washburn, we get so little money from the state. We get 11% of our budget from the state. We get $11 million from the state. We have a budget of about $100 million. All right, so they reduce our budget. It doesn't hurt us a lot. Okay, I mean every nickel. I go begging at the Capitol building every day, and I take a nickel if they give it to me. But it's not a killer the way it is for some others. And the reason it's not is because we started with, and we are still doing, municipal university thinking. In the city of Topeka, you the citizens, the city of Shawnee County is providing about 28% of our budget through a sales tax. And that is why we don't have the same difficulty that some of the other institutions in the state have. because we have that backup to us. Now, it's gone flat since the Great Depression for almost 10 years. It has gone basically flat, but still it hadn't declined. And so that gives us a great deal of opportunity to continue to do the things that we think are important, right? Frankly, Topeka and our entire country doesn't need all the baccalaureate degrees that we're granting. Very unlikely that we, at this point, will need all those baccalaureate degrees. But what we do need, and what is required in today's world, we do need educated persons beyond secondary. Have to have educated persons beyond secondary if we're going to survive as a country and thrive as we have for many, many years now. If we don't, there are going to be other countries that are going to surpass us. I'll talk about enrollment in a few minutes, about our international student enrollment. But I've been going to China now for 10 years, go once a year over there. We have relationships with about a dozen Chinese universities, and they send us students. We don't use recruiters there. We work with the universities. They send us students. And that works out grand for us because those students, they know will succeed. And they come, they do great. It internationalizes our institution. You know, there are a lot of students that we bring into Washburn. We recruit students from all over the state. A lot of the students come to Washburn. They've never met anyone from China. They've seen them on television, okay? They've seen them in movies. They never met anyone from China. We want that kind of relationship so that we offer an experience that's going to be important for students. The thing we've noticed though in the last year, 2 years actually, they've built more universities in China. Universities that started at 20,000 students. When I first went, everybody took a test in China to see if you were going to get into what kind of program, what kind of school would you get into. 5% of the students that took that test went on to university because they didn't have any universities. Well, when somebody told me that, I said, I bet we can find some good students out of that 95% that's left. And we have. We've recruited them. We've been very excited about recruiting them. It's been very good for us. But what China's doing is what's happening all across Asia. And it will happen in India fairly soon. And that is, they are training themselves. And they have looked at the model that we have in higher education in this country, not even the European country, in this country. And they're trying to replicate that. If they can replicate that, they will have an economic advantage because that's what we have done. We have created educated persons. And the things that we enjoy today and take for granted are a result of, to a great extent, the education people received and what they have done with it. Now, okay, all of you are carrying a cell phone. That just didn't happen. That was because you had educated people running corporations and devising new kinds of products that we would all buy. If some of the other countries around the world replicate that, if we back away from that commitment, we will fall behind internationally. We will fall behind in our world today. So, how do we deal with this? We deal with it by shortening this down. How do we deal with this? We took another bold step 10 years ago, and that was to recognize that university wasn't for everyone. And we entered into an agreement with, and we absorbed, Call Area Technical School from 501 School District. And we approached it very differently than 501 did. 501 is a kind of a traditional vocational technical school. What we have is we've looked at the outcomes. We want the student to come with the idea of this is my future, the idea that this is something that will take care of us and my family, and that it's going to be okay to go to a technical program. We changed the name to Washburn Tech. To Washburn Tech. and we refocus the curriculum. And I hope you have seen some of that happen across Topeka. I hope you've seen that some students are taking greater pride in what they're doing. We had students in past years that would wake up one morning in August, having graduated back in May, and they didn't know what they were going to do. Friends were asking them, what are you going to do? I don't know, I don't have a job yet. And they would wake up one morning and say, well, we're going to go to Washburn. And they were underprepared to come to Washburn. What we've done is change the image of that and say it's going to be good if you can come to Washburn Tech. And people now, students now, take great pride in saying, in August, I'm going to Washburn. And we're not trying to differentiate between Washburn University and Washburn Tech. We're trying to make certain that this person has a pathway that they can get educated, that they can become educated. So we have students that start out on one path and they wind up going down another path, or they finish their technical education and they come back and take something else. They'll move back into traditional campus and work toward an associate degree or work toward a baccalaureate degree. We had one student that he was just out of the military, didn't know exactly what he wanted to do, but he knew he needed some additional training. He came to Washburn Tech and he decided to become a welder, and he was a good welder. Then he found out that welding is not just learning how to draw a bead. Welding required some mathematics. Welding required some physics. It required some chemistry. And he mastered that, and he enjoyed that aspect of his learning. So he came to Washburn University and got an associate's degree. He then finished his his baccalaureate degree and went to law school. Finished law school. Welder all the way through law school. Phenomenal story. Wonderful young man. He's a welder now again because he makes more money. Don't tell the lawyer that, sorry. Don't tell the dean I said that if you keep from it. What we're looking for is to find a way that we can help students be successful. And anything that we can do to make them successful, we do. We have a robust student life program on campus that Eric leads. And we want to make some students that want that traditional college education, you know, the ivy covered walls. We want them to feel comfortable coming back and to live in residence halls. We've expanded our residence halls. And we think we have a product, if you take a crass business term, we don't do that on campus, but if you take us as a product, we want you to enjoy that. That's what you came for, that's what we want you to do. And we have, I think, done a phenomenal job in making that happen. A couple of things. We're still involved in the community. We do an unusually broad number of things in Topeka community. We have engaged at Pine Ridge. You know where Pine Ridge is? Anybody? Public housing here, one of the first public housing in Topeka. We've established an outpost there, health outpost, where we are staffing a health center there on that campus with nurse practitioners. We offered a doctorate of nursing practice, and it's been phenomenally successful. We're also building, not far from there, something we call Washburn Tech East. And we're going to expand the programs from the Hontoon campus to this on the east side of town, Washburn Tech East. Give people an opportunity. Some people are riding a bus 4 and 5 hours to get to the west side of town. And we think we can help with that by what we do there in Washburn Tech East. I could tell you a lot of other things that we're proud of. I could tell you a lot of things that we think we do very well, and we do very well for our students. And we want you to feel that way as well. We are a municipal university. We want you to take pride in what that means. We want you to be involved, come out to the campus, walk around the campus, say hello to students. We've got a beautiful campus. I think it's absolutely spectacular. The prettiest campus that I've been on a lot of campuses. And we take pride in that. We take pride in it. The little things make a big difference in a lot of ways. When I was interviewing here a number of years ago. I was chief financial officer, chief administrative officer of a university. And when I was interviewing, they took me on a tour around the campus. And where I came from, in my job there, I was concerned about how the grounds look, how the buildings look, are they maintained all right? And so I was walking around looking at ceilings, because you see watermarks if they haven't been maintained in the building. See watermarks, okay? I would go into a restroom, and had they picked up the towels recently? Have they emptied the trash in the restroom? Was it clean? And following me around was a young man from the Capital Journal. And I'm trying to make an impression on people because basically I'm an accountant, and I'm trying to make an impression on people that I could be a part of a university. And I wanted to show my best side. And the young man that was following me around in the newspaper the next day said, "Farley comments about bathrooms and ceilings." Okay, maybe so, maybe not. Do you have any time left? Do anybody have a question? A couple of minutes? Yes?
First of all, we're intimately familiar with Washburn Tech, the program we do with middle school students introducing to the campus. And I think most of the people that participated in that have been really amazed and appreciative of the university's involvement with that program. I think we're all proud of what they're doing there. But on a bigger note, I noticed that Kansas doesn't have any mountains or any oceans. But for a generation ago, we used to have a really good educational program that was affordable. And it was a pretty good economic development tool. And the fact that good education can develop education or develop industry, I think it's been lost on our legislature. What are we doing to remind our leaders of the importance of public education?
You're just trying to make me feel good, right? It is. Who benefits and who pays is what it comes down to in the end. Who benefits and who pays. Our cost for a university, whether us or University of Arkansas or University of Oklahoma, our costs have been pretty much flat, for the most part, pretty much flat. Price, though, has changed. The price is what students pay in tuition, and that has changed dramatically because when tuition goes up, state funding went down. Now, again, we didn't have that as much a problem as the other schools around the country had. But it's exactly a reflection of how much money the legislature is willing to put into higher education. That's why I'm saying I think it's short-sighted for us not to try to compete on a worldwide platform. Another quick question. Go ahead.
Yeah, Dr. Farley, you shared with us the things that have gone really well at Washburn and what you all are doing well, which is impressive. But are there things that you wish you could do better?
May I do better? No.
At Washburn.
Not serious. What are you talking about? Actually, we have those things all the time. But we try to address them really quickly. One of the things that we have done, and this is something that's kind of different. You know what the primary course is that creates the biggest pothole for a student to finish their degree? What's the course that creates more problems for more students?
English.
College algebra. Now all of you loved it, right? College algebra. Unbelievable. At some schools, 50% failure rate. 50% failure rate. And once you fail that, you can't get out. Okay, my wife Susan was a math teacher, and she tutors some of the students on our campus. She was tutoring a young lady that was taking college algebra for the third time. It's all she liked, getting her degree. Third time. And finally she did. Finally she passed college algebra. Wasn't on the honor roll, but she passed college algebra. We have taken a different tack with that, and we have something we call the mathematics laboratory, where we're trying to teach basic algebra, basic numbers, so a person can have the background so they can pass college algebra. Okay? Or we may get this one accepted in lieu of college algebra. It's called Mathematics Lab. You can't shorten that down. You can't say it's a meth lab. Mathematics Lab. Thanks for inviting me to be with you. We love books.
We do. Dr. Farley, we have a tradition of asking our speaker to sign a book plate. Today's book is Thank You, Mr. Panda. And after you sign that, we'll donate that in your honor to Ross Elementary School. We also have a Rotary four-way test coin there. Thank you for your leadership in our community. We ask that you would take that four-way test coin and you embody those core values every day in your leadership. And when you see someone else who is exhibiting those, we'd ask that you would pass that coin on and encourage them as well. So thank you. Dr. Farley and Eric mentioned that they could take a few questions after we conclude, so they will be around briefly for a bit after we conclude. With that, next week's meeting is back at the Cap Plaza in the Emerald Room, and our program is Chief of Police Bill Cochran, who brought us crisis intervention training and a number of innovative policing techniques. So please do your best to come out. I think it'll be an exciting presentation as well. And with that, please remember to think of folks that you want to share the gift of Rotary with and invite them to be your guest next week or soon to the club and invite them to join. Jeanette, I've got a letter for you before you run off, and let's say the 4 1/2-way test and conclude. Of the things we think, say, or do, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill with our friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? And is it fun? Thank you. Have a great weekend.